Are the American people changing their views when it comes to drone strikes on U.S. citizens on U.S. soil? A brand new poll shows an incredible swing. We break it down in full disclosure. The numbers are incredible, especially for those of us who have covered it in the media. The constitutionality of whether or not the executive branch or the president has the authority to order the deaths of U.S. citizens simply on the suspicion of terrorism. Those U.S. citizens not being given their constitutionally guaranteed right to due process. We've told you for 2 years about the killing of Anwar al-Awlaki and his 16-year-old son, Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki, in separate drone strikes in Yemen. They were both U.S. citizens. And we have reported about the ongoing shadow war waged by this administration via drone strike. And yet, despite journalists like myself or Glenn Greenwald who have reported extensively about drone strikes, in general, the American public has simply not paid attention. According to Slate magazine, a year ago, the presidential race was taking shape. The Washington Post pollster asked voters whether they favored the use of drones to kill terrorists or terror suspects if they were, quote, American citizens living in other countries. The net rating at that time was positive, 65% for, 26% against. It was an issue that many Americans just seemed unwilling to hear. That was until this.
I rise today to begin to filibuster John Brennan's nomination for the CIA. I will speak until I can no longer speak. I will speak as long as it takes until the alarm is sounded from coast to coast that our Constitution is important, that your rights to trial by jury are precious, that no American should be killed by a drone on American soil without first being charged with a crime, without first being found to be guilty by a court, that Americans could be killed in a cafe in San Francisco or in a restaurant in Houston or at their home in Bowling Green, Kentucky, is an abomination. It is something that should not and cannot be tolerated in our country.
That 13-hour filibuster by Kentucky Senator Rand Paul was mocked by some in the media, even by members of Paul's own party, including Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham. Paul said that he wasn't actually trying to stop the nomination of Brennan per se. Rather, Senator Paul said this was an opportunity to educate the American public on this drone policy and whether or not the administration believes that they have the power to kill U.S. citizens on U.S. soil simply because they're suspected of terrorism. An example he gave, could the administration use a drone to kill a suspected terrorist sitting in a coffee shop in Seattle? He left alone the question of whether or not the administration can kill U.S. citizens abroad with drone strike. Now, in the end, was this nothing more than just a stunt that got some libertarian kids fired up, as Senator John McCain claimed it was? It looks like not so much. Because again, according to Slate magazine, a month after the Rand Paul-driven discussion of drone warfare, Gallup asked basically the same question. Should the U.S. use drones to launch airstrikes in other countries against U.S. citizens living abroad who are suspected terrorists? The new numbers, 41% for, 52% now against. So for those of you keeping score, that is a net 50-point swing in public opinion when it comes to drones not just used on U.S. citizens in the United States, but drones used on U.S. citizens suspected of terrorism living overseas. That stunt that Senators Graham and McCain said was simply meaningless, well, in fact, it may be responsible for one of the most dramatic swings in public opinion on any issue in decades. And that is full disclosure.